morning.
Good morning.
Or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Or
Hello.
good evening. We're just glad that you're here.
Bonjour.
Yes. My name is Kim Spillers, and you have joined us on Rural Community Solutions, where we help you design family-friendly, youth-centered places that attract people who want to live in your community, build a business, raise a family, be part of your organizations and your life. And we're so glad that you are here.
So say hello to everybody.
That's exactly
hello, everybody.
right.
That's what you can do in your community. So we want to talk.
Who are you?
Who am I?
Oh yes.
Who am I? Wait a minute.
This is my other half.
Okay. I'm Frank. Yep.
Yes.
Frank Spillers. I'm Frank Spillers. Yep.
Yes.
And I do want to welcome you to Rural Community Solutions. And today we're going to be talking about, do you have a spotlight in your community, or do you have a floodlight focus? Either a spotlight focus or a floodlight focus. And what's the difference? Because we really want to start talking about, where is your focus? What are you looking at in your community? What are you doing towards your community? How is your community recovering from COVID? What steps are you taking, not to go backwards, but to go forwards? And today is especially important because yesterday the census material came out, and you have to look at where your state landed. So if you're in Illinois or Mississippi or Puerto Rico, you lost population over the last 10 years. If you're in a state that lost under 5, or that gained just under 5%, you didn't even keep up with the national average on there. And so you need to look at why. What's going on? You know, if you look at the states that did grow, why did they grow? If you look at the states that didn't grow as fast, why did they not grow as fast as you wanted to? I mean, there's even some fallouts of it. You might live in a state where you lost congressional districts.
This is why it matters.
Or you might live in a state to where you just barely kept your congressional district, that possibly the next time it comes around, or in 10 more years, in 2030, you might lose that seat. So you need to pay attention. You need to continue that. And if you look at the states that did grow, what the census material is saying is that 50% of that growth was by Hispanics. And so you really need to understand who's moving into your community. And are we embracing people that are moving into our community?
People and their ideas. So not only is congressional representation important to a state for how you maintain or grow or lose population, but the dollars that come with that number of people impacts your services, your agencies, your organizations. There's a lot that goes along with those census numbers. So that's why it's so important every 10 years that we accurately count as many people, all of them, hopefully, who are living in your state.
So here's the bottom line. Your economy is fundamentally about people. It has nothing else to do with anything else. It is about people. Your economy is measured about how your people are doing. And that's what we start to look at when we come into your community as a community. Looking at the Community Prosperity Institute, it is a snapshot, a snapshot of where your community is right away in quantitative research style. In other words, you will have the data that you look at to start with. You will know how you will answer your questions of, how are your people doing? How is your community doing? How is your economy doing? How is that all wrapped up into one? And then you will have qualitative research. You will have, what's the perception of your people also? And so when you look at your community, are you looking at just a snapshot? Because if you just look at your snapshot, if you just look at your present day, what's going on there today, you're ignoring about 90% of what your community is made up of. And so that's really spotlight focused. And when we look at spotlight, if you get on a stage and you say, okay, I'm a one-man show. Just visualize me as a one-man show on a stage. Here I am standing in your school auditorium. I've come to speak to your community. I am in your school auditorium. The lights go down. It's dark. I walk on stage and the spotlights go and they come on. What do they focus on? Me. What else can you see? Nothing around me because it's all dark. It's dark behind me. It's dark on the side of me. It's dark in the auditorium. You have a hard time seeing all the people in there. You might have a little glow that you can kind of make out people there, but the spotlight is really, really focused on the issue at hand. One thing. Now, you might have 3 different spotlights coming at you. And that's 3 different organizations coming there. You have city council focusing on that issue. You have the hospital focusing on that issue. You might have a nonprofit organization focusing on the health of your community, the exercise of your community. How are you doing? That's spotlight focus. And that is normally where we have a community. And so you are spotlighted, you are focused on one aspect of that. So again, I'm going to show you this diagram from Startup Communities, the Startup Community Way, the book, the Startup Community Way, and you're going to look at that physical lever. So when you are creating a startup community, when you are creating an entrepreneurial economy, which we focus on, an entrepreneurial economy, a lot of the communities are focusing on, do I have shared space? Do I have a startup space? Do I have that tangible space, that tangible asset that I can see that we created, we remodeled it, we have that room, we have that shared space where people can go. We might have that incubator. That is a focus. And then a lot of times that community just steps back and they say, okay, we created that shared space. We created that space where entrepreneurs can gather. We're done. Now what? All right. So that is spotlight focused. What you really also need to do is have what we call floodlight focus. So picture me again, coming to your community. I'm walking out on the football field this time, or the soccer field, into midcourt, center 50-yard line, right there. And the floodlights come on all over the field. You can see all over the field. The whole field is covered. And so when the teams come on to the field, you can see everything. You can see what the environment is like. You can see everybody on the playing field because you have flooded the area with light. You have flooded your focus. You're looking at your environment, not just that one issue. You're looking at your environment. So you start then to look at below the surface in your community. You look at that 90% of where your community is made up of and what's happening below the surface. That is floodlight. I'm getting my lights mixed up. That's floodlight focus, to where you look at your levers now. You're moving on up the line, up the hill, pushing that startup community up the hill, and you're looking at the long-term impacts. Because when you floodlight your environment, you're looking at the social level. So you're looking at your rules, all the norms, your culture in your community. Some of the incentives that you have are your incentives for just big business, or do you have entrepreneurial incentives also? And your system structures. You're also looking at your culture, your mindset, your attitudes. That's really where we start to focus our work, and that's how we work with your community, is basically on your community mindset, which is a floodlight focus with spotlight accuracy. is what we do. So we look at your environment. That's how we measure if we're making that effect, by how your environment is changing through engagement, through relationships, through entrepreneurship. Those focuses that we spotlight on, and how we move through with those spotlights. But we look at your overall type of environment. Are we changing the environment?
That's what the measures would be, is that eventually when we address the culture, when we address your community in new and different ways that perhaps you haven't ever done before, then the results are going to be population growth. They're going to be business development. They're going to be more kids in your schools. There's going to be new vitality and new life. So that's where we focus. That's where we niche in community development and economic development. Over the course of 30 some years, this is where we find that communities really need just a little bit of nudging and a little bit of help to get them to move in new directions.
So here's what we do. This is what I want you to do, is think about this, but also take action and contact us, because we'll walk you through this. But we start out with that Community Prosperity Institute. We look at your environment. We kind of do a floodlight analysis of your environment to where that is. And then we start to spotlight individually, have leadership, engagement. So we build relationships, and then we use our 4 pillars on this of relationships, engagement, building entrepreneurs, and collaboration or appreciation. And those 4 pillars really then start to floodlight your field, using the spotlights to help change your environment, not projects, but help to change your environment to where we work on leadership. We work on how do you change your environment individually with your mindset. It's not a short-term process. It is very much of a long-term process, because if you are have a goal to create that family-friendly, youth-centered place that's attracting people, that you're turning your population around. Its population will be turned around when you change your internal environment that attracts people. It's not what type of tax structure you have, what type of incentives do you offer, what type of physical amenities really do you offer. That's important, and that has to look. But again, that's spotlight focus that is not changing your field of play. So you really have to change your floodlights to flood the field of play so you can see what's happening, and then use your spotlights to build those pillars that's going to support an entrepreneurial economy. Now, if you want an entrepreneurial economy in your community, call us. If you want any other type of economy, keep doing what you're doing. But if you want to turn your population around, if you want to start attracting families, if you want to start attracting youth back to your community, youth into your community, that's where we specialize in. That's where we can start. So you just need to contact us at frank@ghorizons.com or kim@ghorizons.com, and we'll start the floodlight conversation.
We'd love to do that with you. So as Frank said, just go ahead and give us a shout or leave a comment. You can hear more about our processes and the way we work with communities every day, Monday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Central Daylight Time on YouTube or Facebook. Or if it's easier for you, you can go to the podcast, anchor.fm/Frank Spillers. Think like an entrepreneur, become a spark plug. But if you do the podcast, sometimes when you hear, hey, look at this, you might want to come onto the YouTube channel and be able to see the graphics for that particular episode as well. That just helps you understand a little bit more about the picture that we're painting so that you can get that visualization of how we work with your community.
They're not only helpful, they're bright and colorful.
Absolutely.
So until tomorrow,
yes,
have a great day, and look at that iceberg.
Take care and
see you then. Bye-bye.
Be a floodlight.